5, 4. Hello, folks. Brian Manzella from my studio in the sky in New Orleans, Louisiana. I have Ryan Host from Hackmotion, as you can see in the lower right corner, and the device waving to you. And what we're going to do for 90 minutes is we're going to do in the style of my Manzella 360 show, where we have access to JC video from two angles. TrackMan, the hit screen right here, and of course, Hackmotion, and all the wonderful things you can do with this device. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you folks that I'm not just friend of the guys at the company and an endorser of sorts, but mostly what I am is a user of this product. And I can tell you from firsthand accounts of using pretty much every product that has ever come out, as long as there's been golf instruction products that people used in lessons, that this is probably one of the 2 or 3 best ever. And definitely for the price, the best device I've ever used. What we're going to show you today is, whether you're a golfer or a golf teacher, we're going to show you how this simple device that you can put on. I'm telling you now, you'll forget you have it on, which is part of the deal, right? If you've ever been in a mocap system, you get in a suit, or worse, you disrobe to some amount and they put stickers on you and you're in a suit. And it's all a little bit different. This is lighter than a watch, and you can attach it to your glove. There's other ways to get the 2 parts of the sensor on. And what I do in a lesson is, I had a lesson the other day that was a perfect example of what this product can do. I put it on the student at the very beginning. Just met the gentleman. He asked me for a lesson a couple days in advance. We scheduled. Nice gentleman. He's a professor and a doctor. And he comes to me, and I put the device on. I have TrackMan running outside, not here in the studio, but at English Turn, the Nicholas course here in New Orleans. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just running, right? But it was very obvious to me that what this gentleman did was something that is as common, maybe as almost anything else that you would ever do if you just lined up and gave golf lessons. I had the great fortune in 2012 to do a promotion for Golf Magazine under the sports, back then under the Sports Illustrated and Time Inc. Umbrella, called Sports Illustrated at the Majors. And I got to teach all these people, 600 and something people over 3 majors and a Ryder Cup in Chicago. And I can tell you the number one thing that you're going to see is, if you teach golf for a living, is you're going to see a palmy grip and a very cupped, bent, or the proper term, extended lead wrist, opening the club face a whole bunch, and then a world of things on the downswing done to make the ball go from point A to point B. This gentleman was a former 3 handicap who was playing nowhere near 3 handicap level. And he was hitting 7 irons, let's say, really right on the nose, 120 yards with reasonable club head speed, okay? So what the device was able to show is that not only did he extend his wrist or cup his wrist, whatever, really what you call it is one thing, and then what the device or the machine will call it is something else, but you can call it anything you want. But he cupped his wrist, he pretty much kept it cupped, and then if you do that, the only way you can sort of kind of get the club face to shove the ball forward is to back up on your right leg and swing. I think he was swinging about 9 average. I only let him hit 3 shots, and then I dove right in. And so I can hear the people thinking, right? The old guys, right? Like me. I've been doing this 36 years, saying, well, Brian, you can plainly see the guy's wrist is cupped, and just you got to fix him, right? But what I did with this gentleman, because I just had an inkling that he would be the person that we could use one of the things that we're going to show you here today in the webinar, we did the feedback, the biofeedback. And this biofeedback was set so that, and we're going to show you calibration in a second, but just kind of giving you this little story before we get started. Calibrate to 0, and I made the minimum 0, or let's say the maximum 0, and the minimum as much as he could possibly arch or flex his wrist. And it would turn on the backswing, and he was very surprised how it would turn off at the top. And basically what we were trying to get him to do is eradicate this extended wrist from his golf game. So I wanted him to make swings where the beautiful sound of the biofeedback stayed on the whole time. And this was the very first lesson. I've had the device for several months now, and this was the very first lesson that I turned on biofeedback, literally like on the second swing that we started doing some teaching on, which was like the 4th swing of the day, and we never turned it off because it was doing teaching in real time that I didn't have to do. And he's going to get a product, and he's very happy. He says he's bought all sorts of different things that are supposed to help his golf game, but he knew, because every swing that he could tell that he did a really good job of keeping the tone on, which is what we were trying to do for most of the swing or all of it. And then when we looked at the graph, which we're going to show you in a second, it was magic how much better he hit the ball. And if a device is not going to help the teacher or the student or the golfer who's working, on their own golf game, make a change for the better that makes the ball flight better, then what's the purpose of it anyway? So what I'm going to do right now is show you the device and show you the calibration real quick, and then we'll jump right in, and I'll show you a couple of the main features, and then we'll get right to questions and answers, which I'm sure all you folks want to do. So for the sake of, kind of keeping track of everything here, we're live on Postmodern Golf. That's Michael Jacobs and Brian Manzella's place of business, and the rest of the Jacobs 3D team. Tom Resendez and Rick Silva, Rick Dandy. That's Postmodern Golf. We have 4,500 members. And then you have 3,400 members. And then we have my wall, which has over 4,500 members that I'm live to right now. And also Hackmotion _golf Twitter page, which is the Hackmotion official Twitter page, which is coming from Periscope. So you can watch this on probably the Hackmotion _golf Periscope, Twitter, or on the 2 places on Facebook. So this is beaming to my to what y'all are watching right now, and I just, you can use iPad, you can use this gentleman, by the way, Ryan Host asked me, can I just use my computer, because he's got a little place he hits balls on. Absolutely, right? You can use your laptop or your tablet or your desktop computer, or you can use your mobile devices. And basically, once you put the device on and you put the main sensor on like a watch, and there's a variety of ways you can attach the top one. There's a clip, and I use Velcro. Once you put it on, it lets you I'm in a session right now, so it would tell me start, which is what I would do. And then you get to calibrate. And I'll go ahead and recalibrate for you folks right now. Bring the chair here so you can kind of see how easy this is. Doesn't really take any time at all. So what I'll do is I'll take off my little custom. So I've just got some Velcro here on both sides of my sensor, which is just my little customized version. So I can put it on the back of the glove and just do that. No clip or anything, but the clip works great. Okay, so now I've done that. So I really need to recalibrate because I've moved it in the glove. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold my hand out and just like this, which is exactly what the picture shows. Now, one of the things that me and Reinhold was talking about the other day, watch, what you're doing when it comes to the, in the picture, it's just showing you, this view right here. But a good rule of thumb is if you just kind of bend your wrist straight back and straight down, the middle finger here will kind of go right up the middle of your arm. So if you start this way and calibrate, then you're going to wonder why you can't get any radial deviation because you've calibrated it that way. But watch how easy this is. So I'm just going to do that, pointing that finger straight forward, boom. And then you see the little picture wants me to go that way. And that's it. And I tell all my students, go ahead and wave to yourself because you're on the air. And so what you're looking at right now is a split screen of the sensor in real time. So you can see my hand move around, and you can see up here in the corner, right? If I calibrated it to 0, if I had steadied my hand, it would 0 out in both ways. And then that was the last swing I make, but I'll make another one. Then what you have on the left side there is tiles. So what I'll do, I'll make that the whole screen, and we'll just put it up like this. So this is the basic, most basic way that you would that you might use the device. It's going to give you numbers for 2 different things. I'm going to tell you here in a second. At address, the top, and at impact. And there's a couple other tiles too, but let's just get to that. So basically, you have, if you held your hand like you're going to karate chop a table, you've got extension, bending the wrist, and flexion this way, and it's going to give it to me at address, the top, and at impact. And then you have ulna and radial deviation, which is basically in golf parlance, uncocking and cocking. So go ahead and hit a shot here. I was swinging good in the warm-ups here, so let's hope I don't choke here on worldwide TV. So what that's showing, so what I'll do is I'll move down here to the live view. So see I'm moving my hand and the live's going all over the place. So let's talk about in the green, it's always green, that's flexion extension. So what the device and the software just measured on that last shot was at address, I used what's called mid-body hands. So I purposely have the club in the middle of my body, and I purposely have basically an extended left wrist at address. And you can see, there it is right there, 27 at address. So it's bent 27. If I flatten it out, it's going to go all the way to 0. Got it? Okay. So at address, 27. At the top, now there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on in golf instruction circles, but Rhinos, please correct me if I'm wrong. The top is just the reversal of the sensors here, correct?
Yes. So when the sensor stops moving back and starts moving downswing, then it's the top.
That's the top. Okay. So by the time of the top, so I got in my automobile and I drove to the Superdome, which is like 10 minutes away when there's no traffic. Underline, no traffic. Okay. So 27 degrees here at address. And by the time I got to the top of my swing and did whatever I'm going to do, it was 6. So right there, 6. And that's like a normal, you could just see that was a normal looking top of the backswing position. Then, from the top to impact, I actually had my wrists flexed 1 degree, -1 right there. So that's the simplest way, the simplest graph, the easiest to understand way to look at flexion extension. Now, we go to down here to radial and ulnar. Now, if I made this, if I de-split screen this, you could see the live blue. Okay, so you have to really think about where you're pointing here in the show. But the blue up there, that's 5 right now, and now it's 13, right? That's my radial and ulnar. Now, if you just because I go to this view, this split screen view, I did this so you can see the live number in the blue and the swing number in the blue. So at address, so I don't start with my wrist cocked, right? That would be the positive values. That's positive 13. Obviously, the club's down here on the ground somewhat, and I've got 19. So that's what I have right there at address. And so -19 ulnar, right, this way. Right. And then at the top, people talk about 90 degrees of wrist cock. You can't change your wrist that much. A lot of that's just the club in your hand. See, that club is not in my hand like Corey Pavin's putting grip right here. Right, that club's in my hand on an angle. So what it's saying is I go from this -19, sort of uncocked, to 5 at the top right here. So there is 6, 7, 5. That's how much I radial deviate my wrist. And then I return, on good shots, pretty much right back to where I was at impact, uncocking. There's a lot of uncocking down by the ball that people, they think uncocking is all going to show up as sort of like lag and losing lag or taking lag out, but there's a lot of uncocking that's happening in this direction, this plane of motion. And that's what I did on that swing. And then in the little early part here when we were just hooking everything up and making sure we were on the air, there's a timings tile. Isn't that what it's called? Timings, yeah. I never look at what it's called because I know what it is. So what that's saying is, and there's a lot of talk about tempo and timing in the golf swing, and I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot to it. I always remember what my ratio is when I swing good because that was my number in football, American football. So anyway, 2.8. So what it's saying is that from when this sensor started moving backwards to the time it changed directions, that took 0.81 of a second. The downswing was obviously much faster than the backswing, 0.29, and the ratio was 2.8. Divide the two numbers and you get 2.8. So that's a just really easy way to look at the so-called tile view in the software. Now, to me, one of my goals today is to de-scare people off of graphs. Graphs are easy. You just have to have somebody teach you. And since that's what I'm supposed to do for a living, we're going to find out whether I have any aptitude for teaching people graphs. So what I'm going to do is we'll go to the chart. And this is the swing I just made. And we're going to take off the ulnar. And we're going to show you We'll just show you that last swing because we've been talking about that last swing. Why should I make another swing? I hit that ball, just so you know, just to the right. Nice little shot. Okay, so people see graphs, they get very nervous because it looks like, I don't know, you went to the doctor and they hook you up to make sure you're not having a heart attack or something. I don't know why golf people are so scared of graphs, but I'm going to demystify it. So the first thing is, this is the regular software, not the beta software. And the beta software, just like everybody that makes software, the beta software is the testing software, which is what I use all the time. But for the sake of the webinar today, we're going to kind of stick to the regular software. So you got two lines going in the graphs, two readouts for the ulna and radial and the flexion extension. And you can turn them off. You can turn both of them off if you want to, and you're looking at a blank screen. But we're going to just turn off the radial and ulnar. So what that graph is showing you, okay, is what my wrist did during the swing. And they don't just jump from this number when we looked at the tiles here, from address to impact. And it don't always go as cleanly as this one does, but it's a good place to start. Okay, so as you look at this guy right here, you see a line that's right about even with my little pointer finger right there, and that's the 0 line. So that's where you calibrated 0. So that's going to give you the 0 when it comes to this, and it's going to give you the 0 when it comes to that, okay? But we're just talking about extension and flexion right now. Now, that's the 0 line. Now, if you look up here where the green line started, that's pre-impact. So the first vertical line that goes down, that's address, okay? When I started it back. So the sensor was on, and it has a certain amount of timing that it captures. That Ryan could elaborate if he thinks it's important. But you're waggling and doing things. It catches some of that, and then that first vertical line is address. Then the second vertical line is the top of the swing, and obviously we looked at the timing. The top to impact is a lot shorter than address to the top, and that's what that is. Now, you can then take your finger and just run it on this right here, and we're going to stop there at, it's going to be very small on your device, so I'm going to read it to you. There's the 27 degrees of flat extended wrist that I had at address. And in this swing, not all of my swings, and absolutely not in everybody's swing, I gradually, see, now I'm at 15, 16, I went all the way, and at the top, there's that -5 that we were looking at. So what it's showing is this slope is showing that I gradually did that. Okay. Now, this should be noted here that I hit this ball 33 feet to the right of the target, which off a perfect lie with perfect weather in the studio is not a good shot for me, just so you know. So this is the kind of thing that the device can show. Okay, so let's look at this downswing. It has a little hump in it, right? I always have a hump, a little wave, but this is not a good one for me. So what it's showing there is I go from, right, this extended 25 or something. By the time I get to the top, I get to 5, and then it goes almost to 1, right? Almost to 0. It goes to 2. So that means from the top, I start going toward flexion. I'm continuing to go toward flexion, and I get to 2, about, looking at the graph, about right there. Maybe there. And then, everybody's got faults. I start adding extension, and the hump goes back up. So you see, if you just looked at the tiles here, you would go, oh yeah, Brian was, 15 here and -1 there. Good for him. No, not so good for me, because what I did was I went all the way back up there to like 7 or 8. Looks like 7. And then, because my wrist is now 7 extended pretty late in the swing, I have to shove my hand this way to impact the ball with this 6-iron and put up a dynamic loft of 22, which at 76 miles an hour, I'm just tapping. It's okay, but I don't want to have this cupped wrist, this extended wrist this late in my swing, because now I have to do this sort of catch-up move, so-called handle dragging or pushing the handle forward. I can trust me, just so you know, a lot of this stuff is just me yapping, but if we go to the, just got to find my, we can go to the actual swing here, and we'll put up the face on the left and zoom in a little bit for you so you can see what I'm talking about. On that swing, as I got into here, that's where I kind of recupped my wrist a little bit, right there. And now I have to shove it forward to get to a good impact position. So, you would look at this, just missing a frame here, but you would look at this pre-impact and post-impact position and go, that's pretty good. And we know from the sensor it was -1, so I had it flexed 1, and we know from TrackMan that it was 22.8, and all of that sounds, good on paper. Little bug, I always have to do that to turn it back on. But how I got there is actually a problem for me. So we'll have plenty, I know we have plenty of questions already, but in my golf swing, it's a whole lot better if I don't extend my wrist that late into the downswing. So if you buy the device, or you have the device and you're watching this webinar so you learn more about it, great. If you're going to use the tiles, great. But you would miss this camel hump here in the middle of this downswing. That is the reason, I'm telling you, the reason that I hit that ball 33 feet to the right. And cut it, too, trying to hit a draw. And so there's another little thing in here that I want to talk about that's, that I always talk about in my in the Hackmotion era. So, and I noticed this from other devices that measures things. It costs a lot more money and not nearly as clean and neat and fun a product as this. But motion capture's been around for a while, and I started seeing that the very best players actually put so much flexion in right about here that they could, instead of like O'Brien on that last swing, I was extended and had to shove my hands to flexion. They're in flexion, and they can actually take some of that flexion out and still have plenty of flexion and impact. Probably the number one example of that in golf by leaps and bounds is Dustin Johnson. Oh, Brian, what do you mean Dustin Johnson's not doing this? Well, I'm going to just explain something to you that you really need to understand about the golf swing. There's this thing called time. And one thing you can't go buy in the store is club head speed, and the second thing they don't let you buy is time. That you're just stuck with the fact that to swing a golf club, even as slow as I just swung that 6-iron, from, let's say, right here to right here, is like a tenth of a second, okay? So Dustin Johnson has this wrist like this. I'll put a golf ball over here. Super duper flexed, as you probably just go on YouTube and find all the video in the world. And then he hits the ball, and then over here, his wrist is super duper duper, trying to get here in the camera, super duper duper extended this way. So he was moving toward extension through the ball. So what I'm going to do here is pull up the pull up the tour player in here, which I gotta look here. So what I do, data. Is that how I do it, Rhino? Just goes to the data tab?
Yeah.
Data.
Exactly.
So we're gonna stop the current session for a second, and we're gonna go blah blah blah.
There's a left side is a special icon, tour data.
This
You have to close this one.
right, tour data. Okay, so
You can take the PGA Tour player mid-iron, I think 4 in order.
okay, perfect. So then we'll take the blue off since we were talking about this. This golfer is a current PGA Tour player, no names, right? And tour players are funny about the name thing. I just want you to know. Okay, so this is his graph. So we just looked at mine, and that wasn't even really a very good representation of this. Just early in the morning and a few swings. Okay, so he starts 23 extended, 23, 24. And this little wave is what you will see most people do, okay? Just so you know. This little wave right here, see that little dip? I'm gonna just put that over there. So now what that means is he's taking out this extension. He's going toward, not to, he'd have to go all the way to that line that's going across the screen. He's going toward flexion. The line's going down. And then as he turns the corner here and starts swinging to the top, most good players do not do this. Some do. But most good players, when they get about right here, I did an article on this in Golf Magazine last year. The club goes this way, and as they do that and they add wrist cock or radial deviate their wrist, they also extend it slightly. So you can see how the wave goes down, a certain amount. That's 14. He started at 24, and then it goes back up here to 22. So he's actually almost as extended right before the top as he was at address, but he flattened it right here. You will find, if you have this product or you run out and buy one during or after this webinar, which I highly suggest you should, it's hard to hold a position in the golf swing when you're swinging 95 miles an hour or 85 miles an hour or 75 miles an hour. I'm just going to be honest with you. This thing is swung around your body and swung back around your body, and those things tend to do this and they don't do this. But there are periods in your swing where you can kind of flat line, and this golfer does a wonderful job through the top. So as we follow my little mouse here, through the top, as he goes across this top right here, that flat spot. So I'll move this over here. He goes across that top line right there. That's that middle vertical line. What that means is when he settles on however extended his wrist is going to be right here, he's about right here in his backswing, and he leaves it and comes out without messing with his wrist. I can promise you, from a flexion extension standpoint, I can promise you that this golfer is smooth in transition. If you give it this old whoosh like that, you're gonna do all kind of things to get those wrists to do what I just did right there. So then what he does is what every really good player, in my opinion, does on the downswing. They continually, all the way toward the ball, move toward flexion. And at some point, right before the ball, his wrist actually gets flat. And then, at the bottom of this V that you see over there, before that impact line right there, he gets to 4 degrees. My autofocus is being slow today. I apologize. Hello. Okay. 4 degrees flexed right before impact. That's probably looking at that graph and having done, you know, thousands of these, about right here. Hands are about on his right there. And then as he basically pulls up on the grip and flings the club head through, his wrist starts moving toward, not to, but toward extension, which, as you see how extended it gets over here, it gets super duper extended, 51 degrees over here, right? But when he hit that ball, it was pretty much zero. So he flex down here, starting to fling it, flick it, release it, I don't know, whatever term you want to call it. And that peaked right before impact. Not everybody does this. Some people peak it right at impact. But I'm just going to say, after impact, not a good idea. If it works for you, hey man, don't change anything, right? Not even your socks. Might not even want to send them to the laundry. But that would mean that I was literally adding a arch through the ball if that peak came down past impact. Okay, so if we look at this tour player, again, just look at the between the two vertical lines, which is the top and impact, and see that the drastic move down toward flexion and then a sharp move up. If you just had the top number and the impact number, you would miss the fact that that's how he did it. Notice he didn't have that little camel hump in there that your little Italian buddy from New Orleans had. No. He probably hit this ball at the target, and I just hit it 30 feet to the right when I do that. I don't do that all the time. I'm working on never doing it again, but I just want you to know. Okay, so now here is his radial and ulnar deviation. I don't know who this is, Reinholz, but this guy has got a good swing. I'm just going to tell you folks, this guy has got a really good swing. Okay, so what he's doing here is he is, as that wrist, is this graph, okay? He's got his wrist 30 degrees like this, right? Ulna, and then he's gonna start, as that line goes up, he's adding wrist cock. This little slope goes up here, going up the water slide. He gets to like 3 or 4, okay? So that means in the middle of this backswing, front view would be better for this. In the middle of this backswing, he's going back, he's adding wrist cock, and then just like he did with his flexion extension, he gets to his wrist position, his top wrist position here, goes to the top with very quiet wrist, and comes out of the top with very quiet wrist. This is a really good thing, folks. Not for everybody. You have to have a long enough swing to have that smooth a transition and hit it as far as you need to hit it. But boy, if you can manage it. Now look at this guy right now, he's not driving a Yugo right now. I'm just telling you right now, he can putt and chip. Okay, so he comes out of the top with that same look until about right here. Everybody knows that from looking at good player swings. But then the rapid uncock, people don't really talk about. You do not want the bottom of that uncocking, the ulnar deviation that this left hand's doing in the swing. It's up here like this. Now, if I kept the wrist cock and just rolled my arm around, I'm whiffing this basketball, not just a golf ball. If I'm coming around here like this and I don't uncock my wrist, right? I don't even hit it. But everybody who can play has a pretty sharp-ish, at least with an iron, it's a tongue twister, sharp-ish uncocking down by the ball. And you want that, in my 36-year opinion of teaching golf, to peak before you start recocking, which is the line going up, before impact too. And if you can get it to peak after the flexion extension, the peaks, which I don't think this golfer, yeah, I guess he does. It's very close. I think he actually, he starts recocking before he starts going toward extension. Either way, we're talking about microseconds there, folks. And that would be a really good golf swing. So the point is that if you make a swing, and we're going to go back to live mode here. If you make a swing, and we'll go to tiles, la la la. Okay. If you make a swing and you just look at the tile views, just tap that one out there. It would look like I didn't do much. I started at 8. We're talking flexion extension just to make a point. Started at 8, went to 9, headed at 5. Looks like nothing happened. But if you then take the graph, look at the graph. Not a flat line, even though the numbers suggest a flat line. Okay. So now let's talk for a second here about the biofeedback. So we'll use my doctor guy that came out the other day as an example. You know, a very common example, just extended left wrist the whole time. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go biofeedback. We're going to go flexion extension, and you can see by the tiles up there. So that's 0, and then flex is a negative number. Okay, so I want the maximum to be 0, and the minimum to be, you know, it could be anything. Be 1,000. I don't care. We'll make it 63. And then I'm going to press this feedback button, and we should start playing the song. Now, can you hear it on your end, Rhinos?
Unfortunately not.
You cannot. You see, that's been an issue when I'm casting to the screen. It's casting to, so if you were on one of the feeds on Twitter or Facebook, you're probably hearing this. I'm going to look at the postmodern feed that I have up just to see whether the folks can if somebody over on postmodern, because that's just the only one I have up, but Rhinos can look at some other ones. If you can hear the feedback, I'll turn it off now. You should be able to hear it. It's just a little bug. You got a bunch of things here. This is being cast to the screen so that it's getting the audio too, and I'm not hearing it. If somebody could let me know, it would help a bunch. This happened the other day where the folks in Zoom, this is where Rhinos is, he's coming through with Zoom, should be on now for you folks. Cannot hear it. So Robert Campbell says cannot hear it. It's a bug. So basically, very sorry about that. Basically what would happen is, in my golf swing, let's say, because I'm extended, and that would be a negative number right there. Unless I flip this around. Am I in flexion extension? Did I do my numbers right? Rhinos, if I wanted to turn on.
You have to go negative. Yeah, it should be playing now.
Yeah, so it's playing somewhere. See, there's the thing. It's playing somewhere, but we don't know where it's getting cast to. And Facebook isn't getting it, and Zoom isn't getting it. But basically, what would happen? I'll turn this off because some people are hearing it probably. So what's going on is, you can see this is right here is 50. It's not going to go on until 0. So if I kept this wrist cupped, let's go to full screen here. Nothing would happen. But if I would to flex my wrist, soon as, and I mean, one thing about this device is very, very, the voice of angels will play. And if you accidentally go the other way, the voice of angels will go off. And you can turn that on for any range and either the flexion extension or the radial and ulnar. Just, I apologize that when you literally have a studio like this with a million different things, this is just one little thing that I haven't been able to figure out why, when I cast this to my screen here, where the sound goes. No idea. And there's probably a way for me to mirror the sound and just put it on a Bluetooth speaker, but I apologize for not doing that. Okay, so we go back to the two view here with the chart and the tiles, which is a very common view. So I think it's a good time, Ryan Host, to start answering some questions, and I think it's a good idea to do that from the emails first.
Okay. I think you covered for long game a pattern in risk data numbers that what relation in the parameters what you see for all the good players that they have in common and what the poor players have in common.
Yes.
So probably you can compare address stop and impact. What's the pattern? What do the good players do and what do the poor players do?
On the full swing?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a perfect example right there. I'm extended 30, I'm 8 at the top, and I'm -7 at the ball. And if you look at the graph of that, it's a late peak. I'm just making a fast swing. I'm flexing the darn thing past impact. But good players are doing that, and the timing of it is part of the reason why they can play or they can't play. Okay. And that number, the impact number, is a pretty decent number, but it's a little high. So I'm flexed 7 degrees. That was just a quick and dirty swing. So now I make a hacker swing, so to speak. I'm gripping it in my palm. I'm going to cut my wrist at the top, and then I'm going to come over the top of it. Now you see a completely different set of circumstances. One of the things I'll tell you, if you're a golf teacher and you've worked on your golf game for a long time, or you're just a golfer who's watching this and you worked on your golf game for a long time, it's hard to really do what poorer players do, even when you're trying to do it. And I'm supposedly the king of the one-off swing, and I'm still diving my flexion extension down there to hit the ball. But look at the difference. The difference is that what you're going to see is the poorer player or the higher handicap player in general, they're never going to cross the 0 line. So you set the 0 line like this. It's a flat left wrist, which means if you look at that green number right there, that's flat left wrist. So I get an impact, so you can see with a flat left wrist on my grip, looks like an impact right there. So everybody knows that's a nice looking impact position. Bad players look like this at impact. That's a 15-degree difference, and that's a 20-degree difference. and probably if you go around driving ranges and you listen to people talk about the swing, the question that comes up the most is, how in the hell does Justin Thomas, he's this tall, he's this big, hit a 6-iron, 230 yards, and I'm a big guy, and I'm saying the guy on the driving range with big arms, and I can jump higher and run faster than him, and I'm hitting my 6-iron 160 yards. Well, one, he's swinging at it faster than you for a variety of reasons, A, and B, he's turning the 6-iron into a 4-iron, and you're turning the 6-iron into an 8-iron, and shoot, even in Nicklaus's prime, I could hit a 4-iron further than his 8-iron. So that's the number one thing. The flexion, that's flexion extension. If you look at the radial and ulna, what you'll see obviously is the classic. I'll try to throw one from the top here. I kind of double clutched, but you can see that, and that's a horrible swing. You can see that at the top here. Let's look at the graph. Graph will show you a little bit more. in that ridiculous swing I just made right there, I cocked my wrist, and then that the hump starts going down, so I am starting to cast, if you want to use that term, from the top, losing it drastically, and then I think I double clutched or something and did a little doodad and topped it, and ball went 3 yards carry and 15 yards total. But you see that on a driving range every day. Better players tend to manage their radial and ulnar wrist cock much better. They put it in, they keep it, and then they take it out. And they take it out pretty much on a sharp decline. So if you look at how fast, that little blip right there, you get noise in data all the time. But if you look at where this line is coming down from this blip down right here, see that sharpness? That's me uncocking my wrist sharply at the end. Like, right? If I did this swing right here, where I tried to just throw it from the top, you can see how that's it's still kind of sharp, but it doesn't have that like, right? And hey, that's a shot you hit in golf. If you're trying to, I just tapped that 6-iron, 139 yards. Mickelson's really good at that, uses it all the time. So I'll go back to the 2 view here, and we'll take the next question.
So one question from Dennis is actually about tour data, showing that tour and advanced players not in flexion at the top, but they get to flexion at impact. What kind of advantage does this actually give from going from extension at the top to flexion or slight flexion at impact?
Tried to really hit one a little bit. So it's 175 yard 6-iron instead of these little driving range swings I've been making. And so there's a pretty good example of I'll do it again and make it a little bit clearer what I'm trying to show. Turn on the video, that'll help. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a hard version of my just plain old stock swing here. Worn out. Okay, so that's not very good. That's okay, but not great. One more for the home team here. You stand here and talk, and you get cold as ice. Much better. Okay. So this is all, just so you know, TrackMan wise, that was a 147 smash, 174 yard 6-iron without, a whole bunch of club head speed. But it will answer this question. If you look at that graph is exactly what Dennis was asking. Good players, hey, I'll throw myself in there for 5 seconds, don't seem to get to flexion until impact. What's the advantage to doing that? Well, the advantage to doing that is that your swing is going to be a lot shorter if you're in flexion at the top. So if you look, okay, you saw that swing, and we can compare and contrast these. And what I'll do here is I'll do my best, like, John Rahm kind of thing, where I'll try to go into flexion on the backswing and then just hit a good shot. Really go into flexion on the backswing. Maybe weaken my grip a little bit to do it. Tough. Tough to do that when you haven't done it a long time, I can tell you. Hit the exact same distance shot and hit it 60 feet to the right. Okay, so let's look at the video, and I think you could, first of all, you can see, look at the graph. Okay, so the graph, if you look at the graph, when that green line goes below that center line is I calibrate to 0. So that means I took my extension in my wrist, my bend out. I flattened it pretty much right away. And then I even got to, at the very top, I was flexion, that looks like about 10. 10, okay. Then I kind of held it at 10, and then horrifically felt like I was going to hit this ball 200 yards to the right and rolled my wrist and added flexion. You see that nasty dive through the ball right there? I used to hit that shot a lot, and I don't anymore. But let's look at the difference in the backswings of those two. So we'll pull up this. We'll pull up the John Rahm type, backswing, and then this is the normal backswing. So as I go to the top here, let's see, we'll stop me at left arm parallel in the backswing and sync them up a little bit. So pretty close to the same spot right there. So if you look at these two swings, the difference is that when I flex my wrist, so we're going to show you which one we're looking at right here. When I flex my wrist a little this way, probably should have used a different color on that blue background of my shirt. When I flex my wrist like that, that pitched the club down more. So this club is pitched more down. This club is pitched more up with this slightly extended wrist right here, okay? So we'll get rid of all this noise. And the difference will be much more obvious at the top. So the club really doesn't, it just sort of holds its position, where this club was able to make a little move back toward the target line right there. So I'm just going to say this, there's some players in the Hall of Fame that look like this picture on the right, but if you took them all and you lined them up in the Hall of Fame and you went and got all the people that look like this or had the club even more this way at the top, I just wish my swing was a little bit longer. It's not even close. So what happens is that now, because that wrist is flexed already, I have to either hold that position, which is tough to do. I'm trying. So I really don't, it looks like in this swing, I don't do a very good job of holding the position. So what happens is, in the swing on the swing of the left, I was able to add some flexion, helping me close the face from the top, start squaring the thing up at some point. And then over here, I wasn't. And that's why I wildly felt like I had to save it and look at my club face through the ball there and look at this ridiculous. And I wasn't trying to do that. I'm just trying to hit a good shot for you with a backswing that goes into extension real fast. Goes into flexion real fast on the backswing. So basically, I would say that everybody who makes a conventional, and he just passed away, he's a good example, Gene Littler. I always use Mr. Littler as a good example of a conventional backswing. The conventional backswing since the days of Bobby Jones is the golfer gets the club somewhat in here, and then it moves back toward the target line at the top and somewhat between their arms at the top. And if you make that general shape, and I could do a whole seminar on that shape, but if you make that general shape, you're going to tend to make this movement with the arm. You're literally, the pronation, supination is going to start changing a little bit versus the one where you have all the flexion. And the club shape is going to change. And as the club goes this away, as the club goes back toward the target line, that's in the direction of extending the wrist. Plus, when you cock the wrist and flex the wrist, those things tend to be, you hear this term a little bit now because of, since we've had the Hackmotion sensor. You hear this thing about coupled action, and you can see I'm not a big believer that it's always that coupled because it didn't couple there, right? So what that's saying is that some people tend to, as they add radial deviation, they also add extension. And as they take radial deviation out, they also add flexion, but not always. So my lines are going cockeyed right there. And that was actually a pretty good shot. 6 foot off line, 175 yard 6-iron, goofing around. So I think to answer Dennis' question, there's an advantage to the wave, especially if you do not have strength to play with the shorter backswing that you're going to get from just having it in flexion at the top, or flexibility to make a long enough backswing for you to do it. Trying to hold the position is tough, and I really didn't expect that the one I was going to do right there, where I was flexing the hell out of the wrist, I was going to hit 100 feet to the right, but I pretty much almost did. Next question.
I think actually we could touch also a bit of putting mode. It's something that we've just released.
Yes.
And there are a lot of questions actually asking what are, in general, what are you looking for and what patterns are you looking when you are putting? And
it's a long
you
grip.
can show maybe
yes.
how the wrist graphs look for putting
yes.
and what you should be looking for.
Okay. So
because of course you probably don't look for completely zero, for instance, rotation. That it's gonna appear at some point.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll putt it right off the mat here instead of getting down on the putting green, right? So made it. Okay, so again, live view at the top. So flexion extension. So what that's saying is, okay, I had 26 degrees of extension in my left wrist here, and then I added a little I went toward flexion and got to 18 at the top. And then I released it not just back to 26, but actually just short of it at 25. Okay, so you see if I've released it more, the number's higher. So I went from 26, do it this way, without a, try to get the best view here. Okay, so 26, flatten my wrist a little bit, got it to 18, very sensitive, 18, and then almost brought it back to 26, but got to 25. And then passed the ball, did more of that. Okay, that's the flexion extension part. I would say that's pretty. I tried to make a conventional stroke. Now let's look at the radial and ulnar. What I personally work on in my conventional stroke a lot. So what it's showing is, try to get to the number that I'm at here. I'm at 9.
If you touch the ball, so it detected the impact, so you should take another putt.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Hey. So what that's saying is I had 18 degrees of ulna, and at the top, I had 18 degrees, and at impact, I uncocked it a little bit to 20. I'm going to tell you that of all the things that I've learned about the putting stroke that I didn't know since I've gotten the Hackmotion device and the putting has been available, putting mode's been available, this is the thing that I notice is the problem in putting strokes, is that you really don't, I know the putting gurus, right? And the people who work with this stuff all the time in putting, they probably laugh at me saying this, but hey, I'm a lot of places now. I'm just telling you, I've never heard people talk too much about radial and ulnar in putting, and I'm going to promise you, I'm going to turn the flexion extension and the rotation off in the graph. I see no real reason not to pretty much flatline this. So
just to clarify, maybe the graph here is reference to 0, so it's showing the change in your radial ulnar, not the absolute value. So that's why it starts at 0.
They're all the putting ones are starting at 0.
Because we did it because you have so little wrist motion while you're putting. So if you do it just as absolute value lines, then it would the graphs look very flat.
Yes. But you get the idea, right? So if I was 18, 18, and 20, it picked that up. 18, 18, and 20, that was pretty good. See the difference right there? Right, so I tried to make a little bit different stroke. So what I did was, on this one, is I was obviously 15 here, and then I went to 11. So I was 15. It's hard to, you put a putter in your hands easier. 15, and then at the top, I actually added a little. So I added, because I've been working on this, so I tried to exaggerate it a hair. I was 15 here, and I added and wound up 11. So I'm adding a lot here and wound up at 0, but wound up at 11. And then I dumped it out to 20, which is horrific. So you start getting these kind of slopey ulnar and radial deviation. You're going to be doing this to the putter. This is what the putter's going to be doing. And for 25 years minimum, I have been hitting balls on the toe of the putter. And I don't do that anymore because I've learned what it feels like to, I exaggerated again there for you. I hit that ball much closer to the Toulon logo than I did to the middle of the face, because what did I do? When I took the putter back, I actually radial deviated a little bit when I brought it through. See how that was more of a heel strike. And I had a lot of people look at my putting stroke. I didn't take, official lessons from a whole bunch of people, and I can anchor putt about 10 different ways. I putt like Webb Simpson now if you put me in a match, and it works out just fine for me. But I've always worked on my conventional putting stroke, and this is one of the things that'll show up a bunch. Yeah, I'll hit another one, and we'll talk about the other two.
I just also wanted to mention we made the putting detector very sensitive, because the putting motion is very slight relative to full swing. So it's detecting a lot of, if you just hit things with your wrist, it assumes that you are also putting. So the difference between the full swing mode and the putting mode.
So let's go just flexion extension. So if I, just to kind of show you two different versions, if I did like a Billy Casper stroke where I was all wrists, I made it anyway. that was me going from 35, right? 35 to -3 to 24 at impact, and then back to probably about 34 or so here. Wrist putting. And Billy Casper putted that way, and the guy was a wizard for about 50 years on tour. So, and a whole lot of people trying to do that, but there's going to be people out there doing that. Trying to teach that, but there are people out there who are putters like that, and there's really never been an easy way for them to monitor how much they do that. Now, if I tried to, let's say, imitate Tiger Woods from his U.S. Amateur days, or an old buddy of ours from LSU, Greg Lesher, who for a while I think was the best putter in golf, very much not changing the flexion extension during the putting stroke. And you see how that line is tremendously more. Now, there is a little mini epidemic in putting that I've noticed. I call it grip walk. I would have to stand there and tell somebody, your putter is walking back this way in a putting stroke. And then you have to video them and all this. Now, there it is. So if I were to take my left wrist and go from slightly extended or somewhat extended would be a better term to flexed, that graph would go the opposite way, right? It would go down. You saw the Billy Casper stroke. But on this putt, I did this little epidemic thing, which is people trying not to use their wrists. And what they do is they actually add extension in the backstroke, and then they have to kind of shove the putter at the ball, and it is just not a good thing. And you could make a cottage living, the cottage industry, on just fixing that one thing, and getting people who previously would have that green line go up when they do this. There's the green line going up, and teach them to just allow their wrists to go toward flexion a little bit on the backswing. It's a completely different putting stroke, and for most people, better. And then finally, down here is the rotation graph. Rhinos, you want to give them a little what that's showing?
So that shows also how much you rotate the wrist relative to the address position in a global coordinate system.
So if I were to make my regular conventional stroke, right, what that's showing is I went from 0, I basically opened at 7, and at impact, didn't quite square it up, got back to 4. That line didn't go back to 0. Okay. If I did the feeling would be, kind of like Charlie Wee, sort of a closed to open feel, or Dave Pell's putting track, sort of like keeping the face square, then the graph would look something like this. The graph goes the other way, right? So, and then you could if you wanted to flatline that, I guess, I used to work in the putting track, used to have my hands way up here like this, and just look at those lines. I mean, I guess you could teach yourself to sort of kind of flatline it through the ball. But that's the whole point. The beauty of this device is it's method agnostic, right? So look at that stroke, me trying to make sort of a flatline stroke, and you can see I did some goofy stuff right before impact. But if that's what you wanted to do, there you go. And if you wanted to make, what I would think is a much more modern, Ricky Fowler type stroke, it's going to have, a little bit of everything. Probably don't want to do you probably don't want to go into ulna on the backswing, which unfortunately is probably why I putt anchored, because I did that for 25 years and nobody told me. So having the device that measures this kind of stuff right away. I mean, just imagine you've got your cell phone, and I'm off camera here running down some balls. You've got your cell phone out, and you're on the practice putting green, or you've got your cell phone or your iPad out, and you're in your hallway. I used to putt my mom, dad's hallway, putt 20-footers all day long. Didn't help my stroke any because I didn't have anything measuring anything. I was just going by. I didn't have a video camera because they hadn't been invented yet because I'm old. And I certainly didn't have a Hackmotion device telling me, what I was doing in my stroke. And I probably could have been a million times better putter if I would have had some feedback. And you can use the biofeedback mode that I had to audially in this too. You could set a minimum and a maximum of any of the not of the rotation parameter right yet, just Ryan knows, but just the flex extension and radial and all in the putting mode in biofeedback, correct? Not the rotation.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. We got some. If you have any more over there on the email end, please, or Twitter, please let me know. I'm going to go back to full swing.
There's on on Facebook a question about calibration. How often do you need to calibrate it, and do you find that the unit moves when you're making full swings?
Well, it doesn't move for me, right? But look, if a calibration's this fast, if you can go, we got to start a session here because I was in putting. So calibrate. All right, yeah. If a calibration takes that long, why wouldn't you calibrate a lot? If you're worried about those sorts of things, right? Depends on, and I don't know where I saw this, maybe when I was scrolling just now, whatever, to see whether the biofeedback made it to Facebook or Twitter or not. But you can, there's probably 10,000 different ways you can find a way to affix the sensor. But you have people talking about what would you do without a glove. There's a strap that goes around your hand that you can do it on. And if you do the little Velcro that I do, I just cut little square Velcro, male or female. You buy the pack with the male and the female. See, and I got a male on one side and a female on the other on my sensor. I just put it on the back of my hand. That's how I use it to teach people putting. Although Trevino and Nicholas putted pretty good with a glove on, right? So, but a lot of people, most people don't putt with a glove on, and a few of my students don't play with a glove on. So, you can use the strap, or you can do the little Velcro method that I said. Okay, so let's see here on my end of the feed. Postmodern. Let's see what we got.
There's one question about how much extension in the lead wrist from a neutral do you see in a backswing for a 30-yard pitch? So okay. You can of course use it for short game as well.
Absolutely. So that's I'm glad that was the question here. Let's see if I can pull off a. Not a great one right there. Better. So 17-yard carry pitch shot. Okay. So basically what I saw when I first got the device, when people were yipping their pitch shots, and it's an epidemic. First of all, I've said this a million times, nobody yipped pitches when I started playing golf. And I can tell you there's two reasons why. There's two basic reasons why pitching yips are not a conversation in 1972 golf magazines or golf digests. One, you pitched the ball off of grass that was second cut grass height now. So if you watch, the Masters did a wonderful thing for all golf nuts. They put up all the years that from the time of the beginning of the TV era, the final broadcast, the whole broadcast. And you watch, especially when the cameras get good and it's color and you can kind of see what that you're looking at. They're pitching off of what would be the second cut now, not the fairway cut, and definitely not the around the green closely mown area. So golf's a little easier off of a fluffy lie. Everybody knows this. Okay, so let's start with that. Then the second thing is that I think when somebody hit a pitch shot like that, I don't know if it caught that one. Did it catch that one? I don't know if that was a recap or not. I'll do another now that I know what I'm looking at. Just kind of trying to cut the legs out from one of it. Yeah. Okay. So that was very common looking pitching motion when I was a kid. I ain't a kid no more. And then the era came where people tried to learn to do that. Notice how that graph starts looking a lot different. So the question was about extension.
How much extension at the top?
Yeah. So first of all, I see no advantage on a standard pitch, standard chip, to maintain the extension like this. Now, that was a beautiful little shot, by the way. I made it. I have a little target down there, and it landed on the target. So, and it was nipped, and it was pretty, but it was a specialty shot. So what I did on that shot, and you can see by the tiles here, we'll put up the tiles, is that I mostly maintained the extension from 36 here to dress to 30 to 34 at the top. Felt like I was opening the face 9 miles, and I'll show you what it would look like. So there's 36-ish, right? And there's, 36 here. So you can see that, look at that club face, right? So on a shot like that, yeah. But on a normal pitch that you're not trying to a super cut or a super lob, and you're just, real vanilla like that, what you're going to do, in my opinion, is you want to, depending on where you start, I start with, obviously, with 27 degrees of extension. You want to take out that extension on the backswing pretty much all the way, or a little bit more than all the way. And the longer the shot, the more you're going to take out. So if you look at that one, again, if it goes below the 0 line, it's actually flexed. So I've taken all the extension out. So we go back to the full screen look right there. So real quick here, I'll make a really bad one here. Okay. So what I did on that one was, I was still pretty good for what it was, but I'll just try to talk you through this. What happens to people is they don't make enough swing for the shot to just coast and make a normal swing. A normal pitch shot look like this. And by the way, it captured, right? So that's a normal pace. I made a certain length swing. I didn't feel like I slowed it down. I didn't feel like I sped it up, and you saw what happened. I took all my extension out about halfway into the backswing. So let's say I took it back this far. I took all my extension out. I pretty much flatlined through the top. And then as I went down, I just juiced my wrists. See that wrist going down a couple degrees? A little before impact. I don't want to do that. What that means is I kind of extra accelerated my body there and got some blowback. We talk about that all the time with Jacobs 3D. I got a little blowback as I went further into flexion, and then I had to get that out. Now we're talking about 2 degrees, and that was actually a pretty good shot. But in general, what I look for is very even removal of extension, go through the top with the same amount of extension, and then just gradually take it out. And the same thing for the radial and ulna. I like seeing basically, if you look at that, I'm kind of taking it back without losing any wrist cock. That line, that blue line, would go down early. Then I'm adding some wrist cock. I got that top thing, looks like a hat. I'm keeping my wrist the same way, going through the top, and then I'm gradually taking it out right before impact, and then recocking it going through. That, to me, like making this into like a Y and just swinging it around with your chest, to me, that's a modern, conventional pitch. Hey, man, I know a lot of really outstanding, world-famous short game guys. They might not believe that. It doesn't matter. Whatever you believe, you can see in the graphs. And I can promise you, if you try to do what I just did right there, I call it the upside down, monster face right there. You put 2 eyes on top of the green line, and you got a big bottom lip like this on the bottom. That's a good pitch shot. And you'll see that if you make a little longer swing, that's 16 yards. I'm going to hit one that's be like 35 yards. Those two lines will start crisscrossing each other. I'll add enough flexion for that line to go to 0 or further down, and I'll add enough radial for that line to go down. So there's a that graph right there might be the best example of it's the cocking and uncocking, or radial and ulna, and the flexion extension, or arching and bending, whatever terms you want to use, are not always coupled motions. But that would be really good 35-yard pitch shot. 5,500 spin with not a range ball, it's a good ball. Chrome Soft X. Callaway, go Team Callaway. We got Christoph saying, I work with a lot of my players in the putt mode. Robert Campbell, Brian, with your adjustment, adding Velcro, attaching directly to the glove, do you feel like you have to do less recalibration with your students? Yes, but that's just me now, not an official hack from Hackmotion, but for me, it's a hack. Okay, let me look on my wall here. The easiest way for me to do that would be to just go to Facebook this way here. To see if anybody who's watching, because I have Postmodern Live up right here. We have 7 comments on this. For us oldies, Dustin Johnson, George Berto. For us oldies, Dustin Johnson has the club closed at the top with a bowed wrist and had to rotate his body and release the hell out of the club, as you have described. Wouldn't he be better off with a more neutral position at the top? I don't know. It looks like his life is going pretty good for him right now. Okay. It's a good question, George. So let me attempt to answer it with the help of the device. So the first thing is that when you hit shots with the device on, this is my utility iron here. I'll just try to arch my wrist at the top, but make an otherwise normal swing. By no means Dustin Johnson, but you can see if I take the blue right here out that I took a lot, and I'll go tile view as well. You can see I took a lot of my extension out at the top. And as we would look at that real quick in JC video, we'll just look at the down the line, save some time. You'll see that I start really like arching here. So that's not a bunch like full Dustin Johnson, but it's more than I normally do. Okay, now maybe let's just say that when Dustin Johnson allows his wrist to go to extended, so just so you know what we're looking at here, the tile view is saying that I am 4 degrees flexed at the top. So a lot of people don't know what the heck that means, even after this hour-and-a-half seminar. So I will attempt to show you the video version of that right now. So that means that we'll use the angle tool. The regular angle tool will probably work the best. So this would be 180 would be nothing. So 170, what is that, 176. So that doesn't look like much, but if you look at the picture, that's pretty much what it is. 4 degrees. The back of my left hand is 4 degrees more flexed than it was at the top of the swing. I mean, than my zero calibrate, right? So I zero calibrated like this, and then you can see with a club in my hand, take my normal grip here, and go like this, and you can see what zero looks like that. Okay, so that's flat. So that means Dustin Johnson, there's 0. On my Brian Manzella Dustin Johnson swing, I was 4. Now, you know and I know Dustin Johnson looks like that at the top. So he's probably 15, 20 degrees that way. So I've talked to people who taught him when he was younger, and he always did that. So, everybody's not built the same, And I can tell you from looking at, mocap and looking at Jacob's 3D, that everybody's club face opens. Everybody's club face is opening at the top. It's just that his is opening a little bit less, and that's allowing him to do some things that otherwise he wouldn't be able to do. I figure he figured out that worked best for him. Let me see. We got a couple more minutes. I had 7 comments on that thread. Can you please send us a link for information? That might be a good time to do that. And what we'll do is we'll put these links in all of the places where this video will stay. So we'll have a link. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan. We'll have a link for you to be able to order the device, A, and B, a code for you to be able to get, is it free shipping?
Free shipping, yeah.
Free shipping for
It's a $30 value.
$30 value coming from Latvia for putting up with me for an hour and a half. You should probably get a free trip to Connecticut and get a steak dinner, but you get free shipping instead. And money's money, and Latvia is a long way. So that's a really good offer from the company. As we wrap up here, I just want to say when you're in this business, 36 years in this business, it doesn't seem possible. And then some mornings I wake up, it seems very possible that you do. There's no way to be the best in your field or attempting to be the best, which has always been my goal, without trying things and seeing whether they help you do a better job teaching. I've tried pretty much everything. And I can tell you that for the current price is what, Rhinos? Current price of the product?
Currently $795, which includes all the subscription and customer service, so you don't have any additional annual charge.
Yes.
As well.
So for $795, you get a device that's very durable, that you can put in a little packet and stick in your golf bag. It's just a simple charger. You can charge it in your car, a micro USB, and you have great customer service from the folks at Hackmotion, like Rhinos, and also you can bug me on any of my platforms and ask me questions anytime. And like I said, when you use products, and you can just go to something like the Harry Brandt forum where they talk about golf simulators, there are horror stories now. You're dealing with companies, and they're all not trying to do a bad job on purpose, but it's a hard thing to sell a product and stand behind the product and help you with any issues and help you use the product. And this company does as good a job with that as any, and they're great people, and that's important. But at the end of the day, folks, it's a great device. It's for $800. It more or less is TrackMan for the wrist. And if you like this show, this is a pretty good example of what happens in Manzella 360, except you can be Ryan Host as well, because we use the Zoom technology for people to be able to speak live questions in the show. It's $200 a year. You can go to brianmanzella.com and look for Manzella 360. So thanks, Rhinos, for inviting me to do this. And thanks, everybody, for listening. I really enjoyed the show today. And hope to see you on the golf course with your device on, practicing on the driving range and shooting your career lows. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Dan it.